Bill, and much of what Bill has done has been quietly done for the benefit of something other than himself. And as a result, recognition of him is in some respects providing a recognition that it's not about him. He believes that his purpose and the reason why he does what he does because of his faith.
Bill Shrewsberry, I just hope that he appreciates the fact that other people have seen his contribution, his work, his love, and all the things that he's done both publicly and privately to be such a blessing to people. And I hope that he enjoys all the things that people are going to be pouring on.
So Bill's a great leader and example of what we all need to do. And I'm so excited that he won the award, because you want to recognize people who have been great leaders in a specific space, and the Whistler Award is perfect for Bill.
Business owners are pressed with the business of running the business, and for them to take time away from strategic thinking and moving their companies forward to serve the public good like Bill does, I think he's just a real treasure.
Bill was elected to City Council at large in Jeffersonville, so that's not no easy feat. Bill taught me this. He said when you're in public office, one of the things you got to understand is those days they had 7-member council. And Bill said something I thought profound. He said, in order for me to get one thing passed, I've got to give up 4 things. So he said you had to be able to work with the partners, with your other team members on the council in order to get things passed. I may not always agree with everything that's passed, may not always be the things I want to be, but you pick your fights. So you always had to work together, and he was that type of president, that type of council person. He cared about his community, but also he worked together with the persons who were elected beside him. So they were partners, not adversaries, people who he couldn't get along with. He was always that person who could bring everybody together.
Bill and I first met at the end of 1988 or beginning of 1989. We were both on the first staff that Evan Bayh put together when he was elected governor of Indiana in 1988. Early on, I think it might have been 1989 or 1990, the federal government announced that a military base in southern Indiana was going to be closed. And we were asked, Bill and I and the federal person, to go down to southern Indiana to this base to meet with the leadership to talk about ways in which we might try to fight to keep the base open. That was our goal. Well, we went down there and we had our meeting with the leadership, and then the leadership of the base told the military leadership told us that they'd like us to go into another room adjacent to where we were to quote unquote rub elbows with some of their employees. We said fine. We got up and walked into the other room, and it turned out that it was set up in a town hall format with about 400 people who had just learned within the last week or so that they were probably going to lose their jobs. We were put in front with name tags in front of nameplates in front of each one of us. Needless to say, there wasn't any rubbing of elbows going on. There was simply a bunch of people asking us what we were going to do to save their jobs. Bill immediately spoke up. I'm sure he didn't know what he was going to say when he started talking, because we had no preparation for this, but he just began talking and talked about how we wanted to hear what they had to say. We wanted to take it back to the governor, that the governor would fight for them, both in Washington, D.C. and in Indiana. We couldn't guarantee any outcome, but we would, if the base closed, we'd do our best to bring further economic development to the area and try to fight for job opportunities for them. But in the meantime, we'd fight to keep the base open in Washington, D.C., where the decision was being made. And it just diffused the situation, and we got a nice round of applause when we left, which had nothing to do with any of us except Bill, who was, from that moment forward, my hero.
As soon as he left the mayor's charter school board, we said, aha, we're going to get him on the Mind Trust board so he can bring the experience that he has in evaluating charter school applications to the work that the Mind Trust does to invest in talented people to launch new schools. But Bill was also really instrumental in helping the Mind Trust transition to being more intentional around its community engagement work. That was something that the Mind Trust did not do as well as it should have at the beginning of the organization, and I think because of Bill and other people became a real model for how to do that work nationally. So as the chair of the Mayor's Charter Schools Board, and after that as a member of the Mind Trust Board, Bill has really been helpful in getting tens of thousands of kids an opportunity to get a better education, and tens and thousands of some of our most vulnerable students.
I've sort of looked at Bill as a role model, and he probably doesn't want to hear this, but you know, I've held him up because I really do believe, especially in some of our public initiatives that are striving to bring more equity to spaces like public education and healthcare, that you know, we really do need people who are business owners who can bring that expertise and also their largesse to the table and help move some of those initiatives forward.
The city was awarded the Super Bowl in May of 2008. And when we went into that final bid, we hadn't talked a lot about how we were going to set up the Super Bowl if we got it, just let's get it and then we'll sort it out. And so Bill was one of those. We chose him and asked him, begged him to please lead the operations division of the Super Bowl. So his job, his volunteer job, was to convene all the right people in all those areas, bring them to the table, and map out the best plans. Not that Bill was specifically an expert in worldwide security events, but Bill would help us get all the right people at the table. Bill would work so well with the stadium people, the NFL people, the city, and get those groups all convened to make sure we had the best plan. And he was amazing. He did such a great job.
I was one of the first board members with Bill Shrewsberry and Associates, when there were like just a few people there. And it's so great to see how the company has just grown, just exploded through the years, and all the great work that he's done, and how he's helped even employees go out and start their own businesses. You know, I think a great legacy of a person is when a leader has people that work for them and they don't try to hold them back in a selfish way, and they really try to help them expand and move on and to do great things as well.
Shrewsberry and Associates got started in 2001, September the 1st, and 10 days later 9/11 happened. And the country came to a grinding halt. We wondered, what have we done? But despite that, he continued to show by steady leadership and guidance that despite the things that happened, we'll be okay. And that steady hand has stayed him all these years and continues to support me even today. Bill is as steady as the day is long. As a result, what you saw yesterday, today, and tomorrow appears like they will always be that way. The Bible says in James something to the effect that if you are wise and you claim to know God, then you live humbly, you'll do good works because you are wise, or something to that effect. And that is probably the most admirable thing about Bill, and the thing that I most lean on to. He is an example for me.
Well, first of all, I just appreciate him being a model of Christian manhood that every ministry needs. We need our young boys and our young men to see, here's what real Christian manhood looks like, because if you can see it, you can be it. If you can behold it, you can become it. So Bill became that here. As a businessman, he's a businessman with honesty and integrity, and understands responsibility and accountability. And we don't always see that in business people. But Bill has done that. He's proven that you can be a successful businessman without lying and cheating and stealing and ripping people off and scheming. And then the economic development aspect of that too. So he's got offices in different parts of the nation, and he works in different parts of the nation and created jobs. So instead of waiting on somebody else to come and create these jobs, Bill took it upon himself. I'm gonna build this business, but it's not just gonna be for me and my family. That I'm gonna bring other young men and women in. I'm going to mentor them and teach them, expose them, and help them to come up and help them to break off and do their things without holding them back, but actually encouraging them and showing them how that's done.
I mean, Bill's legacy goes on through his kids and his grandkids, but his kids are successful. They've done a great job. They've been right there with him. And he's built a legacy in family. So, you know, the Bible talks about fruit, and you can see the fruit that's being bared by people Bill touched.
He's, in my view, sort of the definition of what the Whistler Award was all about. He's a private sector individual who has a public servant's heart and really works constantly to make this city a better place, whether it's supporting the government side of things or whether it's supporting civic initiatives.